Arkham Audio presents Wendy Adams, narrated by Mikkel Walker. All copyrights belong to Fantasy Flight Games. If you have enjoyed this production, you can find this and many other stories in the Investigators of Arkham hardback from Fantasy Flight. Two small figures flitted through the crowded streets, washed in gold of a sunset. Rivertown was a crowded, filthy, clattering, industrial neighborhood. It sprawled along both banks of the Mistotonic River in the city of Arkham. It was a warren of warehouses, shipyards, taverns, gambling dens, sundown tenements, hotels of dubious reputation, and factories that smoked and clanked all through the day and night. Being so close to the sea, and home to the internationally renowned Mistotonic University, the area was a melting pot of far-flung cultures from around the world, for what was, essentially, a small and provincial New England city. A surprising number of languages could be heard spoken on the riverfront, and sailors, merchants, missionaries, and travelers streamed from the docks of the city. The two children moved quickly through the press of merchants, longshoremen, teamsters, and street people, steadfastly ignored by the crowd. The one, a boy of perhaps 9 and threadbare dungarees, had his hand in every pocket, coin purse, and basket. The other, a girl only a few years older, in a worn and calico dress and a broad-brimmed straw hat, clutched a burlap sack close to her breast, as if it contained a precious treasure. The streets of Rivertown were home to many destitute, semi-homeless children. They tended to band together for mutual protection, usually under the leadership of one or another of the neighborhood bullies, and the two little urchins settling down River Street, excited with little comment. Once their day's work was done, the children turned south onto Garrison Street, then ducked into a dim, cobbled alley behind a fishmonger's warehouse. It was full of trash, broken pallets, and the stench of rotting fish. They picked their way through, avoiding piles of bloody ice shavings, sodden newspaper, and pools full of standing water and fish entrails, and came to a little makeshift hovel constructed of cardboard and broken wooden planks. The girl pulled back the filthy tarp that passed as a door and checked to make sure the place was empty, and then they both ducked inside. She pulled a railway lantern out from behind a pile of junk and lit it with a match from the box also hidden there. By the dim half-light of the old lantern, they knelt on the crude plank floor while the boy turned out his pockets. A surprising number of things: watches, coins, rings, a silver inlaid pocket knife, paper dollars fell from them. "Wow, not bad for a day's work, eh, Wen?" The girl, a runaway named Wendy, smiled and nodded. Not bad at all. This should keep Marvin happy. She picked up the pocket knife and examined it. Its staghorn handle had an intricate scrimshaw scene of a whaling ship on the side, and a tiny creature like a cuttlefish inlaid in silver on the other. "We'll see about that," came a grating voice. The children looked up to see Marvin and his gang swaggering down the alley, fanning out in a semicircle to prevent the pair from bolting. The thick-necked, black-eyed teenage boy delinquent led a crew of ugly kids with sooty faces, busted-up noses, and missing teeth. They called themselves the Water Street Runners. Wendy preferred to stay out of their way. Not that she didn't think she could take on one or two of the boys, but even she had the sense to realize she couldn't fend off all of them together. Better to give them what they wanted and then scram. "What have we got here?" Marvin knelt down to rifle through the day's harvest, getting his grubby hands on all of it. Once Wendy and James sold what trinkets they could to old Oliver Thomas, the proceeds would have enough to pay their tithe to Marvin's gang, and still have enough money left over to feed them both for a week. That is, as long as Marvin didn't get greedy, or decide he'd have enough of these independents running around without formal allegiance to his gang. "Looks like you smelly orphans even got a couple of things I like," he continued, pocketing the knife. Wendy blurted, "I'm no orphan." Marvin and his gang looked up. James stared at Wendy, the color draining from his face. It was true. As far as Wendy knew, her mother was still alive. She'd just gone to live at the asylum to get better, and they had never found her father's body, or the wreck of the ship he'd been on. He could still be sailing out there, somewhere. Her cheeks reddened as she realized she had placed her hand over the pendant she wore underneath her ragged dress. If Marvin saw it, he might demand it of her. and she could never let him have it. "Hey guys, Wen thinks she's better than us, 'cause she's got parents still," Marvin snickered, turning to his boys. Wendy quickly dropped her hand to her side, hoping they hadn't noticed the necklace. "I heard her mom. Crazy lady. Real loony," taunted one of the boys, with snot glistening above his upper lip. "Lock her up and throw away the key." He pretended to throw a key over his shoulder. The others laughed. Wendy balled up her fists and bit her tongue. They shouldn't be talking about my mama that way, but neither did she want to earn a licking now. "Hey, Jim," one of the other boys teased, picking up a crumpled piece of paper from the collection of knickknacks. "You collecting photographs now, too? Who's gonna buy this from you?" Wendy stole a glance at the photograph, and her eyes went wide. She recognized the man in the photo, recognized her own reflection in his face. It was her father. "Let me see that," she snarled, snatching it out of the boy's hands. "Maybe Wendy's crazy, too," Snot-Nose chuckled. "Whole big crazy family." "Tell you what, Wen, you can keep your pretty picture, and we'll be taking these," Marvin said, scooping up the coins in a hammed fist. James protested, but did not stop the older boy. Wendy didn't look up as the gang made their way back down the alleyway. She turned the photograph over and saw the inscription. "Soon, the red tide rises. Stay safe, my little girl." That was her. She was his little girl. When she had first run away from the orphanage, she used to wait by the docks and believed that this boat or that boat would be carrying her father on it, and that he'd walk off the gangplank and recognize her and come to make Mama all better. Everything would go back to normal, before the weird books and the chalky symbols and the strange words, the way it was supposed to be. If her father was out there, if he had written this note to her recently, it didn't matter where he was. She'd find him, and then Mama wouldn't have to be sad anymore.